videos we will upload more patriotic news. U.S. bans travel to North Korea. Citing safety and security, the State Department announced Friday that Americans are banned from visiting North Korea. The decision comes on the heels of the death of Otto Warmbier, a University of Virginia student who died after being detained in North Korea for more than a year. Warmbier was comatose when North Korea released him in June. His parents stated he had been gravely mistreated in North Korea. Due to mounting concerns of the risk of arrest and long-term detention under North Korea's system of law enforcement, the Secretary has authorized a geographical travel restriction on all U.S. citizen nationals' use of a passport to travel in, through or to North Korea, State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert said. We intend to publish a notice in the Federal Register next week. The restriction will be implemented 30 days after publication of the Federal Register notice announcing the restriction. She said that individuals who want to enter North Korean borders must obtain special permission. The State Department said in a statement that anyone who travels to a restricted country such as North Korea without special permission could be prosecuted for misusing a passport. Representative Adam Schiff, D. California, who has proposed legislation to bar Americans from visiting North Korea, praised the Trump administration's decision. It's the right move, he said. I hope we'll move forward with the legislation as well so we can codify this. We've just had too many tragedies with Americans going to North Korea, it isn't safe. When asked if the U.S. should still help Americans who defy the ban and are taken prison by North Korea, he replied, ultimately we take responsibility for all of our citizens, but we ought to be doing everything we can not to allow themselves to put themselves in harm's way. And putting the country in that position. Others also commended the move. This is a very necessary measure, said Christopher Hill, a former Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs who dealt extensively with North Korea. There have been too many incidents of Americans capriciously arrested and then either in some cases facing long imprisonments and other cases facing a sort of political showdown which has involved some kind of political rescue mission. He said the risk of traveling to North Korea outweigh any conceivable gains from visiting, so Hill thinks this measure was overdue. Political science professor Timothy Rich, who teaches at Western Kentucky University, echoed Hill's sentiments and said that while an official restriction is a good first step, he is not sure how it can be enacted. The intent behind it is commendable, but I'm not sure how effective on its own it can be. I think the death of Otto Warmbier is more effective than the ban itself, Rich said. A lot of it is symbolic. The limits on traveling to Cuba only affected certain people, and if you really wanted to go, you still went. He does not think North Korea will cooperate with enforcing this ban due to the profit it makes from foreign visitors and said there are many ways around the intangible limit, not getting your passport stamped, going through multiple countries to reach the country and not posting pictures on social media, among many other methods. Rich also said that this ban would require tourist groups, mostly based in the United Kingdom and China, to comply with the restrictions as well. The State Department has been discouraging people to go for years, yet even more people have been visiting, Rich said. If you went, to be blunt, it was kind of cool. Now there's going to be a stigma that might help deter people. Former CBO directors hit back at GOP criticism of agency. All 8 former directors of the Congressional Budget Office fired back Friday at Republican attacks on the nonpartisan scorekeeping agency over its projections that Obamacare repeal would leave millions more uninsured. In a letter to congressional leaders, the former chiefs wrote that the CBO has a long track record of producing high-quality and nonpartisan reports. We write to express our strong objection to recent attacks on the integrity and professionalism of the agency and on the agency's role in the legislative process, wrote the ex-directors, who served under both Republican and Democratic administrations. We urge you to maintain and respect the Congress's decades-long reliance on CBO's estimates in developing and scoring bills. The letter follows a slew of attacks from congressional Republicans and White House officials who accuse the agency of bias and flawed analyses and have in one case suggested Senate Republicans bypass CBO and rely on the Trump administration's HHS to score an amendment to their health care bill. It's almost like it's not a fair analysis, OMB Director Mick Mulvaney said Thursday, ahead of a CBO report that estimated the Senate GOP's health care bill would leave 22 million more uninsured over a decade. Two other White House officials called CBO's estimates little more than fake news in an op-ed taking issue with some of the agency's assumptions in scoring the bill. CBO's former directors have bristled at suggestions the agency is fudging the numbers, pointing to its transparency in explaining its methods and emphasizing that CBO never claims to predict the future, but often produces the most accurate projections. Policy changes are often complex, the economy is dynamic and defies precise prediction, and many policies are modified over time, the former CBO chiefs wrote. However, such analysis does generate estimates that are more accurate, on average, than estimates or guesses by people who are not objective and not as well informed as CBO's analysts. The defense comes just days after HHS published the report predicting Senator Ted Cruz's proposal to let insurers sell deregulated plans alongside Obamacare-compliant ones would drive down premiums. That study was roundly dismissed by budget and policy experts, who criticized HHS work as flawed and misleading. The Cruz amendment, which insurers warn is unworkable, could destabilize the market, has not yet been analyzed by CBO. Priebus ally Walsh returns to RNC. Katie Walsh, a longtime top advisor to White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, is returning to the Republican National Committee in a senior role. Walsh, a former top White House staffer who departed the administration this spring, will return to the RNC as Senior Data and Digital Advisor, said Ryan Mahoney, a committee spokesman. The decision received final sign-off from the White House, according to two people familiar with the talks. The move was part of a broader staff change at the RNC that unfolded on Friday. The committee abruptly announced that Helen Bridenko-Etter will serve as Chief Data Officer, replacing Jesse Kamzal, who had been serving in that role. During the 2016 campaign, Walsh served as the RNC's Chief of Staff. After leaving the White House, Walsh worked as a top staffer for America First Policies, an outside group that has been set up to promote President Donald Trump's agenda. She has long been viewed as a top lieutenant to Priebus, a former RNC chairman who remains involved in the committee's operations. The announcement comes as the White House undergoes a shakeup of its own. On Friday, another top Priebus advisor, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, resigned following the hiring of Wall Street financier Anthony Scaramucci as communications director. Scaramucci has previously collided with Priebus and Spicer, both of whom opposed his hire. Alabama agonizes over Trump attacks on Sessions. Donald Trump's harsh criticism of Attorney General Jeff Sessions is rattling Alabama Republicans, who count as some of the president's staunchest and earliest supporters. Conversations with nearly 36 local Republicans turned up fond memories of Sessions, the state's former senator, and frustration that he would be so publicly undermined by Trump. When President Trump says that, it's disparaging and unproductive, said Jefferson County GOP Chair Sally Bryant, who hails from the most populous county in the state. Sessions is a great guy, and he's one of the most honorable people I've ever known. I've never known him to do something that he didn't think was constitutional. There are few places where the president is more popular than Sessions' home state. Mobile was the site of Trump's first big stadium-style rally in 2015, an event so pivotal in his campaign that Trump returned there in December for another rally to thank local voters. That ardor hasn't faded. A February poll showed Trump's approval ratings at 88% among Alabama Republicans, with a stratospheric 69% strongly approving of his performance. But Trump's public attacks on Sessions for recusing himself from the ongoing Russia investigation have struck a nerve in a state that elected the Attorney General to the Senate 4 times. Like Bryant, Local GOP officials lined up to defend Sessions. Ozark Mayor Bob Bunting recalled that when his wife passed away on Christmas Eve in 2015, Sessions called just hours later to express his condolences and to check in on Bunting's grandson, who now serves in the military. "I was overwhelmed with that call, because nobody else out of Washington would ever call me in that way," said Bunting. "That's just the kind of person he is." Bunting, who considers himself a strong Trump supporter, was exasperated that Sessions' decision to recuse himself was being used as a cudgel against him. And Trump expects the Attorney General to not do the right thing for the country? "Dear Lord," he said. "He could be the greatest Attorney General in history if they would just let him." Sessions, who offered his resignation to the president in May, said Thursday he intends to remain in his position for the time being. Jackson County GOP Chair Ellen O'Connor felt torn between her support of Trump as an outsider and her admiration of Sessions' ideological consistency. "I don't know what's on Donald's mind," O'Connor confessed. "I don't know why he made this stupid statement. To me it's stupid. If he knew anything about how the federal government and FBI worked, he should have known that Jeff Sessions would have recused himself. The man will not go against the grain. He's a very true conservative." Many GOP county chairs and local elected officials were highly critical of media coverage of Trump and effusive in their praise of Sessions, more than few referring to him as one of the best senators in state history. They remained supportive of Trump, acknowledging that they give him leeway to make mistakes on the job, but criticized Trump for hindering Sessions' ability to do his job. "We've got the possibility of having one of the best AGs we've ever had if the media would just get off their back and return the greatness to this country," Bibb County GOP Chair Jerry Powell said, adding that, "Sometimes Trump talks before putting his brain in gear." Bunting was equally blunt. "I just wish he would throw his Twitter away and shove his shoe in his mouth. I just wish he would pull his head out of somewhere and start governing," he said. "I'm surprised he hasn't said anything about his son-in-law instead."